afternoon, face Heather Robinson here with Educators Rise Enterprises. I am hopping on today to do what I've been doing throughout the week with some of my co-authors. I am doing an Educators Rise Spotlight review live on Facebook with some of my co-authors. I did one on Monday, I did one on Tuesday, I'm doing one today. Now, before I go into that, I wanted to share a little bit about the project and the history behind it. Educators Rise came about, and we're on our third anthology of the anthology series. So the book is the Educators Rise Voices of Change, the DEI Impact Anthology, Bridging the Gaps. This is volume 1. Now, volume 1 and volume 2 are live and ready to go for sale. Volume 3 will be launching on July 18th, but it is live now for pre-sale. We did do a pre-sale. This is volume 2. And in all of our books, when we do pre-sales, we have a acknowledgement page. And so the acknowledgement looks like this. I'm going to show you what the acknowledgement page from volume 1, well, one of them from volume 1. So this right here is the acknowledgement page, and we acknowledge everyone who pre-ordered a book during our pre-order time. Now for volume 3, our pre-ordering where you were actually listed in the book is over because the book is now going through the print process. So we've already done editing and formatting. We're in the print process now. But if you would like to pre-order from one of the authors, I'm pretty sure they would not mind if you pre-order from me. There's other things that I offer with my pre-orders. Now, going into when we launch, we will launch on Saturday, July 18th, 2026 in Exton, Pennsylvania at our second annual Educators Rise Conference and Award Ceremony. This will take place in Exton, PA at the Hilton Gardens Inn. It was just renovated. It is beautiful. This is going to be an experience. Last year was amazing, but this year we're going to have an experience because we're going to have an author panel. We're going to have keynote speakers. We are going to have some surprises. You never know what's going to happen. But for those of you that are in Pennsylvania and in the surrounding areas, if you are looking for something to do, if you want to be a part of the movement, if you want to be a part of what we have going on, I have tickets. Now, when you go to my website, you will see the early bird tickets are up. And that's great. They're $97. However, it is the week of Juneteenth. For Juneteenth, I have a Juneteenth special. In order to get the Juneteenth special, you have to email me because the tickets that are up online are for my early bird special. My Juneteenth special tickets are less expensive, but because it's for such a short period of time, I did not put it on the website. You have to email me, educatorsrise@gmail.com. And the email, I want you to just email me and say Juneteenth special. I will send you the link to how you pay for your ticket, what the amount is, and all of that. So if you are interested, email educatorsrise@gmail.com. And when you email me, either in the body or in the description or the title or whatever you call it when you're sending an email out, just type the words Juneteenth special, okay? All right, so my third co-author spotlight of the day for Educators Rise is Professor Steve Maynor Jr. I'm going to bring him on, and I'm going to allow him to introduce himself to you. So I am adding him now, and while he was coming, we're going to sit back, relax, and hear what he has to say. Welcome.
Hello.
How's it going?
It's going good. We finally got on.
Great. Yes, guys, we tried 3 times. 3 times a charm. Listen, this is technology at its finest. Things happen. Technology still glitches. So I wanted to, first and foremost, thank you for your yes and being a part of this anthology. And thank you for joining in on our very first week of going live for interviews. This Facebook Live Spotlight thing is something else, you know, but I'm stepping out on faith, and I want to share really quickly that Educators Rise Enterprise is not just about giving people the opportunity to be a part of an anthology or to speak on a stage. It's about opening doors and allowing them opportunities for visibility. And so we've done a collective interview last night on a Renewed Mind Revolutionary podcast with the host, Michelle Cook Hall. We will also be doing another group interview next Friday. And then there is one scheduled for July, which will also be a group interview. So I'm trying to give people an opportunity to not just be a part of something great, but to learn how to do certain things, to learn how to put yourself in position, right? And so someone said people who are in business don't have a selling problem, they have a position problem. So being able to position people where they're able to use their voice, share their message, share their why is really important. So with that being said, Professor Steve, tell us a little about yourself.
Okay, first, thanks for having me on, Dr. Robinson. Not just the Facebook Live, but having me on as a contributor to the project. I am Professor Steve Maynor Jr. I am a native of Folkestone, Georgia, small town in the bottom southeast corner of the state. I've been married for almost 27 years. I have 4 adult daughters. I have 5 grandkids. I'm currently the assistant professor of communications at Davidson-Davie Community College. I'm a retired Marine. Served almost 24 years, and I've been writing off and on for the last 10 or so years, and I finally got serious about being involved in writing in a book. And I've been fortunate enough to now be a contributor to 2 books. And I'm working on my own book as well. So I speak, I write, I love all my students just like I loved all my Marines. That's kind of me in a nutshell.
Wow. First of all, thanks for your service.
You're welcome.
Because
Thank you.
23 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, that in itself is phenomenal.
Thank you.
But what leadership lessons have you learned from the military that you continue to allow to guide you today?
Yeah, the basic military structure and in regards to leadership is take care of your Marines. And it was an easy transition going into the classroom because I started teaching while I was still on active duty. And I just applied the same basic taking care of my people and translated that over into taking care of my students. I know I can't talk to my students and reach them the same way that I've reached Marines, but I can still reach them where they need me to be. So that's probably the most important thing, is adapting my leadership style to the needs of the people who worked with me. And it's so interesting seeing how easy it is to apply if you do basic leadership things in the classroom with your students, they respond because they know you care. And when a student, just like any other human, knows that you care, they're more inclined to comply and do right and submit assignments on time and be where they're supposed to be, because they know it's not a transactional. It's a no kidding. I am interested in your development, and if I could do anything to help a student get from where they are to where they want to be, I will go. I won't stop at nothing to help students get there. So that's how the military has impacted the way I conduct my classes and interact with my students.
I love that, because a lot of times now I come from a military family, so I'm probably on my dad's side. My sister and I, and one of my brothers didn't go, but everyone else went. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the military gets a bad rap, right? And so I think about when you were saying you have 4 girls. You know, 4 girls, 5 boys, consist of 9 of us, and I'm the youngest of 9.
Oh my
And
goodness.
some of the stuff that I learned from growing up in a household with a military father. I joke about this a lot, with my brothers, and they're like, we used to do dishes and put them in the cupboard, and my dad would come and he would take one of the glasses out and look at it like this, and if he saw spots, you had to start over with all the dishes, right? Now, people that don't understand that, right? That's how you get the bad rep. People that don't understand that, like, oh my God, that's so harsh. Like, but when you look back at stuff like that, it's those small things. During the moment you think it's big, like I can't believe I gotta do all these dishes again. But during those moments when you're in reflection and you think about those small things that you learn, it's really disciplining your mind.
Absolutely.
Right. So I remember when my brother had lived with us and he would fold up his dirty clothes, and I would say, I wasn't in the military. You get your clothes in the dirty clothes or the bag, and you take it downstairs and you put it in the wash machine, and then you fold them or hang them up. And I didn't know until he explained to me. He didn't get offended. He just said, when I was in the military, I had a bag, and so everything had to fit and everything had to go. And I was like, wow, you never know what someone's story is or what someone went through until you sit down and talk to them. And although you get that bad rap where there's so much structure and discipline, but is it bad to have a lot of structure and discipline? And I'm saying that because I'm thinking about how you are articulating how you are with your students, and that is what made us know that we were cared about, right? So just having those things in place, and for you tying in as someone that has these leadership skills and has effective communication skills, and many people struggle with effective communication. We all communicate. That means it's effective. Why do you believe communication is one of the most important leadership skills?
Wow. I think the duality between leadership and communication can't be separated. I have yet to find a good leader who is an ineffective communicator. So if leadership is your thing and you don't have the ability to communicate with the people who are on the receiving end of the things that you're saying, it's not going to work. And I snickered with you telling your story about being the youngest child in a military family. I consider myself blessed to be able to that I had 4 girls, because I started having kids when I was young. I was about 19 going on 20, and I had to grow up really fast. I wasn't mature enough, I don't believe, to be the father of a son because I wasn't mature enough. I think I would have been too rough, too rigid, too strict with a boy in a way that would have probably turned them off, because it almost turned my girls off based on the strict ways in which I brought to the table. Now I'm talking about the military strictness. I'm talking about the strictness that I was raised with my parents, and it was a comply. It wasn't no talking, like I say and you do, and that's it.
Yeah.
And I brought that same mindset into parenthood, and it didn't get me far because I realized each one of these kids needs me in a different way. And we kind of talked about it last night in regards to equity. My youngest daughter didn't need me in the same way that my middle 2 daughters or my oldest daughter. And it took me a number of years to recognize that. So, tying it all together, that's what good leaders do. Good leaders make decisions, self-reflect, and then pivot. If the self-reflection tells you that you're doing something wrong, you need to change. It ain't everybody else. I was the problem, and I needed to change the way I approached uh, leading in my house with my kids, and how strict I was, uh, and not getting too far away from the foundation or the standards, because the standard around my house is clean, neat, everything has a place, things need to be organized all the time. And that's not just the military. Again, my home training taught me that when you get out of the bed, you make it up. When you take off dirty clothes, you put those dirty clothes where they're supposed to go. So it's a blending of all of those things that kind of help develop me into the type of leader that I was in the Marine Corps, and now that I bring to the table into the classroom. And the last thing I'll probably say is the Marine Corps has this philosophy of mission accomplishment first and then troop welfare second. And I never led like that. I always led the opposite, where I put the needs of the Marines first, because if they know that I respect and care about their needs, there's nothing they wouldn't do to get the mission accomplished. So I kind of flipped it, and there was some pushback from a certain segment of folks, but none of the people that I'm in charge of ever had a problem with me taking care of them. And if that meant me taking out the trash so they could go home and do what they need to do, if they need to stay home and care for a sick child, I wanted them to do that, and I'll pick up their responsibilities, because I don't need a person at work thinking about their sick child. I need them at work thinking about work. And because, those type of gestures, other people see that, and they really see how much you care. And then now they start buying in, and they start opening up about some of the personal things that they have going on in their lives that may be impeding their success or their progress at work. And it was up to me to navigate those individual spaces to see the needs of a single mother with 2 kids versus a young male Marine who was living in the barracks with no additional responsibilities. I absolutely could not treat them the same. I loved on him, I taught him, I was hard on him, but his needs and her needs were not the same. And the young male Marine didn't feel slighted because, I dealt with a female Marine that had 2 kids and was single. They didn't feel slighted at all. And that kind of, brings in the whole conversation about the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. I know
I'm
it's a
gonna
long
pivot.
answer.
I was going somewhere else, but you taking me there, so we're gonna pivot.
Okay.
So I'm listening to your upbringing and how you were in the beginning as a young father and what it turned into and how it coupled together built your leadership. I want to talk a little bit about equity in military spaces. Now this is gonna be a little taboo, but I'm just wondering, because if we are, I'm choosing this very, 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 very wisely, Facebook land. If we are held to the same standards, how then can we incorporate equity into something that is so structured and has been for so long?
When you pull back and think about equity in relation to the Marine Corps or the military in general, equity is practiced all the time, day in, day out. Because like I said, you're bringing a melting pot of people from all over the country, and in some instances from other countries, who are making the decision to serve. Where they come from and what they're made of is impossible to be to treat everybody with just a blanket and deal with them one way. I will tell you, I had a kid from Kentucky. This kid never had a toothbrush of his own. And an incident happened to where something happened to his toothbrush. And this is during recruit training when I was a drill instructor about 20 years ago. And this recruit was heartbroken because somebody happened to kick his toothbrush and it got thrown in the trash. So later on that night, I asked him, why are you so worked up about this toothbrush? And he said, well, kind of like you, Dr. Robinson, I'm the youngest child of 9. I grew up in, the hills in Kentucky. I've never owned my own toothbrush. And This was in 2004. So in the year of our Lord 2004, we still have young people who don't have access to basic needs and services. So that was a highlight moment for me to let me know that I need to reach this recruit a little bit differently than I reach a recruit from an affluent family who has all the access to the things that they need, or from a person who was familiar with military service. They're just not the same. And we practice those type of equity engagements all the time, even drilling down to various roles and responsibilities. My job as a data analyst in marine aviation logistics was not the same as the infantry. So the infantry takes up the priority, or the large majority of the money when it comes to where money is allocated, because the infantry is the primary. Everything else supports the infantry. So the infantry needs more than aviation and some of the other support elements. The other support elements can't get mad because the infantry gets more funding. The money is there and it's spread equitable. Or you know get where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
I needed things as a aviation logistician that infantry and groundside Marines didn't need. We didn't get treated different. Our needs were met based on our positioning in the role and responsibility that we had to the mission. So I hope that answers kind of the question about, or give you maybe you and the audience a little bit of insight about how equity is on display on a daily basis. Some things have priority, other things don't have as high a priority. The same could go with aircraft. So let's say a unit has 10 to 12 aircraft. Some of those aircraft are problematic, and some of them need a little bit more love and a little bit more maintenance because of a whole variety of reasons. That don't mean we're neglecting the other 9 because this one needs more maintenance. You give the one that needs more maintenance more of your time and more of the manpower. And equity plays out like that. So it's so easy to kind of push back on some of the demonization of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, because people have a very narrow view of what that really is and what it means, because they immediately attach it to ethnicity or race. And you and I know DEI is not about race, sexuality, gender, religion. It's not. It's about basic human decency and meeting people where they are. And we do that, or we practice that in the military all the time. And I apologize if you hear some noise in the background. I got some work going on underneath the house that I told you about.
All I can hear is what you were saying. You might be able to hear my fan, but this is good because everything that you just said represents DI at its core, right? We are meeting people where they are.
That's right.
From basic needs on. Phenomenal. Now, let's let that spill over into the workforce, right? And so we talk about DEI, and people were really assuming that it just was about jobs. We talked about that last night. And how would you, as a leader in a leadership role, explain to your employees? You have the employees that are given the pushback because they fear those things that they don't understand. And that's why you get a lot of pushback with DEI, because people don't understand it. They see it as being one fold, and it's not. Yeah. And then you have the ones that understand it. And so there's divisiveness there. How would you, as the leader, step in as the anchor to anchor these two groups to get to a median understanding of, you don't have to push so hard to get your point across. However, you need to have all the facts before you assume.
Correct. So my guidance typically is it starts with civility and respect. And if we have conversations and approach each other with civility and respect, if that's the foundation, now we can have difficult conversations about complex issues, and always making it literal and treating each other as humans and separating all of those other subcategories and getting away from that stuff. And I use practical examples of their lived experience. So if I have something going on in a business or an organization, everybody has a need, and everybody needs have to be met where they are. So again, it kind of goes back to, what do you need? And how can I give it to you, or how can I provide it to you? And I think it's across all industries, in education, in the military, in business. If you meet people where they are and satisfy their need, nobody feels slighted. And then sometimes folks may need further explanation in regards to, why are you giving so much time and attention to someone else and not me? And if you explain to them, well, the need for the other person is greater than yours right now, that doesn't mean I'm neglecting you, and I still love you. You just have to, you're a little bit further ahead. So I try to flip the narrative or the framing if there is a complaint about diversity, the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And one of the questions I ask oftentimes is anybody in here a twin? And this is with my students in staff meetings. Is anybody in here a twin? And occasionally there will be a set of twins in the room. And my response is, even this set of twins sitting right here are not the same, because humans are uniquely built with our own specific identity. Your fingerprint and your twin's fingerprint are not the same. And once you start putting it in literal sense, now people are like, oh, right, we are all different. Yes, we are. Our differences don't make us enemies. Our differences make us different. And people who are different from you present a great opportunity for you to learn something about somebody that you didn't know. Even a set of twins learn stuff about each other the more they communicate and observe and interact. So that's what I try to do, to get people away from the stereotypes and the negativity surrounding DEI, and explain to them how they are practicing DEI on a daily basis, whether they want to call it that or not. But that's what it is, you know. So the framing, I think, is so important in leadership, and when you're giving guidance, making sure you're framing the arguments to a person who could be pushing back, and let them know you're already doing DEI. And then I give them practical examples based on their role or responsibility in the organization of how they are a DEI champion. And they're like, dude, you know, I never thought about it like that. And I'm like, right, I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just here to inform you about not following stereotypes and taking the bait. I mean, it's so easy to take the bait.
It is.
And say DEI is, you know, giving someone an advantage over the other, when it's so much more nuanced than the surface level talking points that get thrown out and have scarred DEI efforts over the last 5 or so years. Mm-hmm. Do you remember when critical race theory was a big political talking point?
Yes, I also remember being in college and talking about critical race theory. And I also know that on Tuesday, you know, I'm a part of one of the biggest virtual summits in education in Pennsylvania. You know, the Pennsylvania Educator Diversity Consortium is having their annual summit. And, you know, one of the ladies will be speaking about race theory versus and the list can go on. You can verse it towards this and towards that. And so that's our angle. And, you know, their theme is unfinished and unafraid. And not to really like go here, but when you think about unfinished and unafraid, the work of DEI is unfinished. But those of us that are a part of the movement are unafraid, and we have to. We don't have a choice.
That's right.
Because if we go at this thing scared and afraid, then we're not going to get where we need to get to. And the object is to educate people to understand the what. It's not always about the why. More importantly, with DEI, it's about the what. Because people don't know what the what is, and that's why they assume the why. You got to get to the what to get to the why. And so that's so important when you're talking about this. And everything that you've talked about so far has gone back to one word, and that's communication. So as a communications professor, what are some of the biggest challenges students face when developing strong communication skills, and how is that impacting the adults? Because after you're a child, you become an adult. After you're a student, you become a worker in the workforce. Some of them are going to become leaders in the workforce. Some are going to become leaders in business and entrepreneurship. What is the biggest challenge you believe students face when developing strong communication skills, and how does that impact them in their adult life?
It's the ability to hold face-to-face conversations. That's the largest challenge that a lot of our students face. Technology has blessed us with the ability to do what we're doing right now, but technology has also crippled a generation of people who don't know how to have a conversation with another person, and they would much rather communicate with them through a device or a computer. So I force students to talk. Like, this is a communication class, which doesn't mean that I'm doing all the talking. Everybody in here are going to talk. And there's still some students here or there that'll get through a whole 8-week semester and they won't say one word. But the fact that they show up, I know that they're getting the material, because when they write their reflective journal entries on a weekly basis, I know that they're in the conversation, they're listening. And slowly but surely, those first couple of weeks, they may be apprehensive to kind of open up and start sharing. But then when sharing becomes the norm and they realize that they have something in common with other students in the room, now all of a sudden, somebody that sat quiet in the back of the class for 3 weeks raises their hand and said, you know, I have an example of the concept that we're talking about. So if we're talking about perception, and we give and talk about literal examples of what perception is and how important it is, how we perceive others and how others perceive us, now students start opening up. So my goal is to get them to be as comfortable as possible in the classroom. That is a safe space, no judgment. We could talk about everything in this class, and we could talk about it and we could disagree and not drop kick each other. But in order for that to happen, listening is required. Because for me, mindful listening is the foundation of communication. And I say that because I was such a bad listener for so long. And I say I was a bad listener, and folks who are in the military or come from a military background, you have to be a good listener at work. And I was very successful. Then in my social life with my friends, I was a really good listener. In my personal life with my wife, I was terrible. It took 20 plus years for me to realize that I didn't listen to my spouse. And what I was doing was I talk about 3 areas of our lives: our professional life, our social life, and our personal life. I didn't have the ability to turn the switch because I was taking my listening habits from work and with my friends and bringing it home. And I messed up listening so long, and I dug myself so many holes because I didn't do a good job listening. And the more I read about the importance of effective listening skills, I'm like, you know, a lot of our social problems would be solved if people spent more time using these and less time using this, because we were blessed with 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, so that we could listen more than we talk. And students really, I harp on that every single class, and they start buying into it. And then I force them to think about how many of the world's problems, or how many of your personal problems, have been started or continue because you didn't listen, or somebody didn't listen to you. And then we start bringing in literal, real examples of, okay, here's a problem in society. How could this problem have been solved? And now the students are starting to say, well, dang, if that side would have listened to the other side, this conflict could have been avoided.
Yeah.
So now, I'm kind of shifting the power of answering the question back to them and forcing them to think about ways of solving problems and conflicts, which we know are inevitable. Conflict is going to happen. But if we just take the time to stop talking and listen more, I think this generation is going to be a lot in a better place.
Oh, yeah.
And we have to balance the amount of time that they spend communicating in a digital space, and give them a place and a reason to interact and socialize with people in real life.
Yeah, because as we move with the times, we could do the game of comparison all day long, but the bottom line is somebody's calling. Bottom line is we are in a different time.
We are.
And so we can't keep talking about, oh, well, these kids are a lost cause and this and this and that. Sometimes you have to expose people to things. And I'm sitting here and I'm laughing the whole time you were saying this, because I thought about when you said we got 2 ears and 1 mouth. My dad used to say that all the time. We got 2 ears and 1 mouth. You learn more when you listen more. And I found myself as a teacher telling my students the same thing. So it's amazing how that goes full circle, like 2 ears, 1 mouth. It's kind of how you learn. But one of the things that stuck with my pre-K class this year, and I was very intentional because children can be cruel. And sometimes children will look at another child's work and laugh and try to tease them. So our saying before we did any presentations would be, we listen and my students would respond, and we don't judge. And it stuck with them. And so it didn't matter what anybody's work looked like. When they got up there and said, this is a picture of me and my mom,
celebrate them.
The students celebrated it and said, yes, that is a picture of you and your mom. It's great. Or whatever the compliment was. The reason I picked that up this year is because I wanted to see how the mindset shift of a 4 and 5-year-old could make the difference for their individual experiences in the classroom. So then it got to the point where whenever you did something, your friends celebrated you and said, Miss Heather, look at what so-and-so did. Or Mr. So-and-so, look at what such and such did. And so their peers were celebrating their little milestones and their little successes, right? And it got to the point where instead of hiding their work, they're like, hey, Steve, look what I did today. And they want to show it. Yeah. So it really, really, it all ties in. And I feel like the effective communication part is so important when dealing with DEI and explaining it and walking this thing out and implementing it in the workforce, in the classroom, even at home. As you were talking about, you have 4 girls and the middle 2 needed something different than the youngest, and the youngest needed something different than the eldest. It's the same principle.
That's right.
Right? And so that I thought was amazing. It's like we're living this out in our daily life and we don't even realize it. You'll see an older person walking across the street and someone will stop what they're doing and help them across the street. That's DEI. Because what am I doing? I'm meeting that person's individual need.
That's right.
Or if someone's in the hospital and someone brings them a balloon that says get well, or someone's lifting something and someone helps them, or if you're cooking and your wife comes in and she's like, how can I help you with that? Those little things add up to a bigger picture. And I feel like in education and in life, right? So this anthology, we're talking about being teachers in the classroom in education. But this conversation, I wanted to take it broader because of your broad background, but also when you think about it, and we're talking about DEI being for people and not just specific people, but people like across the board. So we're not just looking at women, but it's for women. We're not just looking at men, but it's for men. We're not just looking at children, but it's for children. We're not just looking at black and brown people, but it's for black and brown people. We're not looking at Asians and Indians and Africans, but it's for them. It's for everybody. Because when we get to the point where people's individual basic needs are met, that's when you will see more coming together. That's when you will see more of that. It takes a village, right? We've lost our village. We've gotten away from our village because everyone wants to look out for self, right? We're in a selfish society. And if everyone's looking out for self and making sure only their need is met, then there becomes this conflict. And that's where people have the lack of understanding of, well, DEI is just about black folk. Well, that's because you don't really understand where you fit in. It's not it is. It really comes down to we're selfish by nature and we want to know how we can individually benefit from something. And if we don't see it right away, then we kind of just brush it off and we move on with life. Sometimes you got to dig deeper to understand what's happening and to get to where you need to get to. So yeah, DEI is for everybody. It's not just for one individual, gender, race, speed. It's for everybody.
And that's the last, the letter I in inclusion. Inclusive means all. I'm not excluding anyone. Everybody can get some of this, and everybody is doing it on a daily basis. And again, when I'm met with pushback about diversity, equity, and inclusion, I just try to give them an example of how they're already given it or they're on the receiving end of a diversity, equity, and inclusion effort. Because that's the only way they see it, going into what you said about the individual nature of modern society, me. Well, so I'm going to tailor the message specifically to you because you have a need at some area in your life that requires someone to give you more than they may give me. And I shouldn't feel slighted because I don't have the same needs as the person that I'm engaging in this conversation with. And you could literally see the light bulbs going off in their head. And I'm like, we need to get away from attaching labels to everything. But if a label does get attached to something, make sure you're attaching it correctly and you're analyzing it correctly. So again, here's the pushback. There are a few times where I don't want things to be diverse. I open up a carton of eggs, I want to see all eggs of the same color, right? That's just a really practical example where I try to give examples of, okay, diversity may not be your cup of tea. So you like eggs, right? And if you open up a carton of eggs and you see a mixture of brown and white eggs, it may turn you off. But people aren't eggs. People are people. And we're all so different. Whether you want to accept diversity or not, you are practicing diversity just by being born. Because you're born different than anybody else ever on the planet. So you are diverse. And then tying into other ways that your diversity doesn't make you a good or a bad person. It just makes you different. So
Right.
then now I come back with another way where diversity is practiced. So take investments, for instance. Anybody who does investments know that you want to diversify your portfolio because you
Yep.
don't want all of your investments tied up into one thing, diversity. Equity comes in the same way with investments, right? You don't want all too big of a piece of the pie going to stocks or bonds or mutual funds. Where your money is going to be the most impactful, here is the equity. Because stocks may not need as much of the pie as mutual funds, depending
Right.
on, how aggressive you want to be with your investments. And then the inclusive part is everybody can invest. Anybody can do it. And you can do it to fit your retirement needs in regards to investing. So given a practical example like that, again, trying to reach people where they are and figure out what are you involved in, and let me explain to you how you're already doing it. And that's what I like about the approach with volume 3, diversity, equity, inclusion in action. We're doing it, and whether people want to accept it or not, or they are afraid of having the label of DEI attached to them, it just requires us to educate them and get them to think about it a little bit differently than what they've been taught about DEI efforts especially over the last 4 or 5 years. It's under attack, and it's targeted, it's intentional, it's targeted at certain people to make certain people feel deprived that everybody is getting a seat at the table. Now, you still got to win, and I'm not getting an advantage by getting an opportunity to compete, because that's what marginalized people have always wanted from Jump Street. Just give me a chance. Don't tell me I can't because of the color of my skin or my gender or my sexuality or my religion. Give me an opportunity to prove it. And the pushback is so interesting that they don't even want to give people an opportunity to compete and tell us it's merit-based when we see non-merit-based things happening
All the time.
in real time. People being given high-level positions and opportunities that they have not merited. So it's really laughable when you talk about your example of two people of two different ethnicities competing and one having the edge inherently over the other. That's real. That's a lived experience.
But you can even look at it like this. Let's do it this way. A white male, a white female, both have MBAs, both have 15 years of experience, both have phenomenal portfolios, going for the interview for the same job. Why will that white male get that job over that white female? Yeah, that's rhetorical.
It is.
That's what Facebook land to think about. Because we talking about race and all of it. Let's call a thing, and this has been something that's been going on for years. When you think about DEI, you're talking about meeting people where they are. That's totally different than affirmative action. That's totally different. Like it's not the same thing. And I think people are coupling that together or trying to put it in the same box. You can't squeeze DEI in a box. First of all, there's 3 parts, right? You got the D, the E, and the I. So you can't merge them all in one box because it's not. It's going to be like combustion. It's going to just going to bust out. So I feel like the main thing has to be the main thing. We have to understand what we're dealing with first. And I keep saying we got to understand the what. We got to understand the what. People don't understand the what, so they're running from it. They're trying to get away from it. They're trying to tuck it away. Then there's people that do understand the what, and they're playing the game, right? Because there's a game to this.
Absolutely.
We're going to play the game so we can win, right? It's the success game. So we're going to play the game so we can win. I'm not going to tarry here long, but someone talked about Jay-Z playing the success game with Target and won, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's for a conversation for another day. If you don't know, you can Google it. It's public access. But that's an example of knowing, but playing the game anyway, because it's a game that has to be played.
Yep.
So there are people that know, but they are choosing to do different because it's about numero uno.
Mm-hmm.
DEI
Well,
is about the people,
yep.
not
And
about
Dr.
one person. It's about everybody. And that's the difference.
What you
And
just
once
said,
people can wrap their brain around that, then we can kind of move forward with this.
that's right. What you said is is so important. You didn't say that the white male would, that's not your opinion. Data has shown historically over time exactly what you said. Now, understanding the game before you play it is important. You need to understand what the rules are, who made the rules, who set them up. And if you understand that and then you look at the data and the data tells you who has a higher chance of getting hired when the qualifications are equal, well, that's understanding the system. And we as Black people have had to understand the system and be twice as good, work twice as hard, be twice as proficient in order to overcome those baked in systemic hurdles that we have had to deal with, not by choice. I don't like it, but I do need to understand what I need to do to leverage myself to at least make the playing field as even as possible.
Right.
And I believe that threat of competition, the threat of people who have been marginalized flipping the script and then treating other people we like we have been treated, which is never has been the goal. The civil rights movement were about, let me be human, let me be uh free to roam and do as everybody else in society is doing, and leave me alone. Just leave me alone and let me exist. Don't bring in rules and laws that's going to restrict my freedom because you feel threatened that if I get a little bit of freedom, it's going to impede your ability to get your own freedom. When that's not the case. When everybody is free, freedom is so much more enjoyable. I don't want to hog all the freedom to myself. I want everybody to get that kind of freedom. Whether they think, look, believe, act like I do, I as a believer in freedom, I believe that we should be able to do those things. And diversity, equity, and inclusion, if you're a freedom loving person, you would absolutely you love diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about the classroom because
Okay.
you have a very interesting background. Professor Steve has taught in-person classroom, hybrid situations, as well as virtual situations.
Yeah.
So, in all of these different learning environments, how has education evolved? And what skills do students need most to succeed today?
Yeah. In my almost 10 years in higher education specifically, students need to talk. They need to know how to socialize. And that kind of ties into an answer I gave to a previous question. But I do believe the socialization of young adults is super important because there is not a career field, an industry, any profession that our students are going to enter into where they don't need the ability to be an effective communicator. So now, again, I flip the question back to the students. Tell me what you're going to be when you grow up. What are your career aspirations? Now, in that career aspiration, can you do that thing without having the ability to effectively communicate? And I'll go around the room and we'll write answers on the board for these various careers. And it's universal that no matter which direction the students go, they need to have the ability to effectively communicate. Communicate face-to-face, communicate virtually and digitally, because technology is a part of our world and we can't be in deniance about that. But we have to have a good balance of in-person interaction, how we move and communicate in the digital space, and making sure, again, personalize it to a point to where students know that you may be cool and have the freedom to post and do what you say in an online environment, but please believe that that is being archived, and you don't want to say something in the moment that may come back to bite you 5-10 years down the road because you didn't have the emotional intelligence enough not to post the first thing that came to your mind. So are the students in a worse position than I was 30 years ago? No, they're not. And I'm not giving up on the generation because these kids are bright. They just need to be in an environment where learning and critical thinking is encouraged. And if disagreement is okay, if you're willing to listen to somebody else's point of view and understand why they think and believe and act the way they do, and not tell people you're going to hell because you don't do A, B, C, or D. You know, when we start projecting our thoughts and values and forcing them on the other people, that's when kids start shutting down. And the environment that I try to create in my classroom is welcoming and inclusive of all thoughts and opinions, even those that I vehemently disagree with. And if I disagree with it, I probably already have studied and I have some facts that support why I disagree with that position. So coming from a fact-based point of view and teaching students how to siphon through what's real and what's not on them internet streets is certainly a challenge. So I invite bad information into my classroom, and then in real time we could hash it out, and let's find a variety of sources to support your arguments, and I'll find a variety of credible sources to support mine. And being willing and open to have those type of complex conversations, I think is the right way. Now, I am biased because I think communication should be one of those required classes, because if you know how to if you have the ability to be an effective communicator, that's going to roll over into math, science, nursing, welding, HVAC. That's just a toolbox that you could take everywhere you go, no matter what you do.
It's funny you said communication. When I went to college 2 years ago, communications for undergrad, everybody had to take a communication class. Everybody, just like you had to take English and math and science, everyone had to take a communication class.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was younger, I was very shy. I was quiet. People don't believe it. Ask my family, they'll tell you. That's who you'll find it out from. You won't find it out from anybody else but them. Or maybe my best friend, because I've been friends with her since I was a teenager. Mm-hmm. But I was quiet in the beginning. Very shy. Getting up in front of a crowd to speak made me want to throw up. And I had to take that communications class and pass. And my communications professor was like, y'all are going to do a presentation. You're going to do an individual presentation, and then you're going to do a big collective presentation. Mm-hmm. It wasn't until my senior year where we had to do our senior, what was it called? I don't remember what the term was back then, but it's kind of like your last big research
mm-hmm. paper, senior project,
if you will. Your senior project. Yes, we had to do a group senior project. I went to Temple, so we had to do this group senior project, stand in front of everybody that was somebody to your major, the president, the dean, the this, the that, all them important people, and then a lot of your peers, right? So this class might have had 150 students in it. It was a lecture. So you and your group had to stand up in front of all these people and present. So you had to do your part, I had to do my part, this one had to do their part, this one had to do their part. There was 5 of us. and we had to write this paper. Everybody had a part to write, and then you had to create a binder, and then you had to deliver on your findings. So I was up there, my palms was sweating, my knees was knocking, my teeth was chattering, and the group just kept saying, we've gone over this over and over and over, you got it, you got it. It's not until you believe yourself that you got it, that you got it.
Yep.
And so I say that to say, if we didn't have these communication classes, I wouldn't be where I am now, where I can stand in front of a class of teachers and of students and teach, and stand in front of a group and do trainings and do these live videos and get on stage and stand flat-footed and do a keynote or do a talk, even if it's virtual. You know, you still know when you get on Facebook Live, there's a possibility that there's thousands of people watching you. You get into a room with 20 people, only those 20 people are watching you. But there was something about having the nerves, right? So the communication class teaches you, when you do a keynote or you do any type of talk, certain words to stay away from. Don't be so fidgety. Don't say, you know what I'm saying, between your words. There's certain things that you learn in those communication courses, and it spills over into how you communicate with the people in your life. And sometimes it takes effective communication to get to the point where you can meet a person's individual needs. So that's where I wanted to kind of like bring that full circle. If you have a company, Communicate to Lead Consulting and Strategy, which focuses on leadership and communication development, what inspired you to launch your business?
It was I've been in different seminars and different conferences, and I see highly skilled people in business who are thriving and they're making a lot of money, and they can't lead themselves out the door. You know, they're a technical expert in that thing, but they're so smart and intelligent in that thing that some of them have trouble getting people to buy in to their style or their way of doing. So I said, well, I teach communication. I teach public speaking. I teach interpersonal communication. Why don't I offer my services, some similar services that I give my students, to clients, to organizations, businesses, schools, who may need me to come in and talk about just the fundamentals of basic leadership and communication and how those two are married together. So that's how I kind of got the initiative, and I really took my time and thought about, what do I want to do and how do I want to contribute? Because if somebody invites me to their place of business for a talk, a seminar, a class, I can tie basic communication skills into every door that I walk into. It is so universal, and I'm just bold enough to champion the importance of communication to truck drivers or somebody in an executive suite. So that was the initiative to kind of get that started. And to go along with that, the writing and the speaking, I wanted to be professional. I wanted to have a brand to stand on and say, okay, these are the services that my brand stands for. And that's kind of how I came in to Communicate to Lead, because again, I do believe the two are married. We can't separate communication and leadership. You certainly can't not be a good communicator no matter what industry or career field you're in. It really helps.
I love that. And this goes into my next question. Okay. What advice would you give to educators and leaders who want to build stronger relationships and trust within their organizations?
You got to show the people that you care. and not just care about them and what they could do for your organization or your business. And the same approach that I use with developing and training and teaching my Marines to be better than me, I wanted to give them everything I had. And once they saw what I was teaching them was real and it was paying off, they started buying in. And now they are not looking at me as a transactional person in charge. They're looking at me as a transformative person that they could come to and seek guidance. Getting buy-in is so important, and letting people know that you care. I call it, you got to give a crap. And sometimes I don't use crap, but you gotta give it. And and the person on the receiving end has to receive how much you genuinely care about them as a person. Forget your looks, your color, your ethnicity, your religion. I care about you as a human. What can I do to help you be a better person? Because if you're a better person, when you come in this atmosphere at work, you're going to produce, and the results are going to be so much greater because the person knows that you really do care about them.
Right.
It may sound like a fantasy idea, but I've used that approach my entire life, and it works. I've seen the benefits of pouring into other people and celebrating their wins and their successes, and then them coming back and saying, you cared.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that's kind of been the most important thing to me, going back to the troop welfare part of Marine Corps philosophy and doctrine. I care about you so much that the mission can't fail because you care about me and I care about you.
That's good. With all of that, and all that you've done, and all that you're doing, and all that you will do, what legacy do you hope to leave through your work in education, leadership, and mentorship?
It goes right back to the people that I'm fortunate enough to be around. They can say Steve Maynor Jr. cared about me and everybody around me. It really is that simple. I care so much about the success of organizations and people that I work with and am involved in. I overextend myself sometimes trying to help people. Not because I want a pat on the back, but I genuinely, to my core, I believe in the power of the community and the power of the collective. If you're weak and I could give you something to make you stronger, that's what I want to do. And I don't need anything back from that. And I just have trusted that my good deeds and trying to walk in being a decent human being, I continue to be overflown with blessings and favor in my life, because I try not to make it all about me all the time. I need to make it about you and how can we work together. One question I was asked when I was being interviewed for the position I'm in right now. I was asked to talk about my greatest weakness.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer was, I care too much. And that's not a typical answer when somebody talks about a weakness, but that was and continues to be a struggle for me. I do care too much that I will overextend myself and go out of my way to help other people at the detriment of my own physical and mental health and stability. But I just believe in being a giver and a server, so much to the point that when my days on this earth are long and gone, somebody can say, that guy cared.
Mm-hmm.
He cared about me. He wanted me to do well. My tactics aren't always received the best, and sometimes it may be harsh because that person needs bluntness in the moment. But I know how to navigate that space where I need to be blunt and harsh with somebody, and then somebody else I might need to hug them and tell them how much I love them and care about them. So that's what I want my legacy to be for my kids, my grandkids, my family name and reputation. I believe your reputation, it follows you around. And when somebody mentions the name Steve Maynor, there is no doubt in their mind about what they're about to get involved with. They know I'm a loyalist. I'm gonna go hard. If we're working together, I'm giving you everything I got. And it's opened up so many doors for me because people know that I'm not half stepping. I'm giving you everything. And that means a lot to me. I could go to sleep at night knowing that I gave today everything that I had, and I'm itching to get up in the morning and do it all over again.
I love that.
It sounds crazy sometimes, being as outgoing as I am and openly expressive as I can be sometimes. I wake up in the morning sometimes and I am thrilled that I woke up. I wake up in pain, I'm hurting, but then the simple fact that I woke up, I'm just like, I'm celebrating. And my wife is way more reserved than I am, and she's like, "Not, please don't start." But I wake up with that energy because I just don't want to underestimate the value of life and appreciating the opportunity that the next day has in store. It's been a problem for me because I've taken on so much, because I'm trying to accomplish so much on a daily basis. But I don't want to leave here and feel cheated, or I don't want anybody around me to feel like I didn't give them everything that I have.
Wow. Well, leads me to my final question. What final message would you like to share with educators, leaders, veterans, and aspiring professionals who are watching today?
Focus on positive framing, because we are constantly bombarded with negativity in society. Sometimes we got to shut down and turn it off, and we got to look at things and start framing things from a positive perspective, and not being naive about the troubles of the world. But I guess I'm a half glass full versus half glass empty type person. I'm always looking for small rays of light in every situation, even trials and tribulations and turmoil. I believe educators specifically can look at those as learning opportunities and things that they can add to their toolboxes that may not be able to help that one student, but somewhere down the line that'll help another student. And we have to continue to come into classroom spaces that make students feel warm, feel welcome, feel like they're valued, because that may be the only place in their life all day that they get any type of positive feedback, positive energy, the feeling that somebody does care about them. So as hard and difficult as it can be for educators sometimes, because we are bombarded with the weight of all of these different people, personalities coming into our classrooms, what a great opportunity to pour into them. And you might not see the direct results immediately, but I just firmly believe, and I have faith that everything that I pour into a student is going to come to fruition somewhere down the line. And I just want to encourage educators to stay positive and don't be afraid to have difficult conversations. But those difficult conversations have to be done intentionally. They have to be measured, and they have to be engaged in with an open mind, particularly with people who don't think and believe the same way that you do. You got to let people know that your opinion matters. And if there's a difference in opinion, let me offer you some other information for you to consider. I'm not saying you are wrong. I'm not saying your grandma, and we all love our grandmamas, But sometimes our grandmamas told us some stuff that wasn't true. Telling you that your grandmama is a bad person, your grandmama might be just misinformed. And let me empower you with some tools, some facts and data that supports the things that I'm talking to you about. So that will be it. Encouraging folks to read, buy books, of course. Being a part of.
Listen, when you said buy books, it just went back to you being a professor.
Listen, when I signed on for this project, I said, in order for me to get the full grasp of what I'm getting myself to with volume 3, how about I read volume 1? How about I open it up and see what direction this is going? Not just volume 1, but volume 2 as well. So now I have a better understanding of what I needed to bring to the project in regards to action. What are we going to do to make sure we are practicing these efforts? So I encourage people to read and buy books. And I will never stop being an advocate for the importance of education, because I've seen what education has done for me, the doors that education has opened for me. So I'm gonna go to my grave advocating the importance of education.
Wonderful. Well, Professor Steve, I thank you so much for your yes to joining in on this project. I thank you for your 23 plus years of service as a high-ranking sergeant in the United States Marine Corps. And I thank you for your leadership and entrepreneurship and just your take on communication. It brings a different perspective having the conversation with you. To the joining audience, I thank you guys so much for joining, spending time with us, getting to know Professor Steve a little better and know what we're doing. Thank you for joining our Educators Rise Enterprises Facebook Live Spotlight interview. And there is more to come. Be sure to go to either to the website, stick with me on Facebook or Instagram to learn more about these spotlight interviews and more about what we have going on. Also, remember that I do have a Juneteenth special for the tickets for the conference, which will also be the launch of Volume 3. It's happening Saturday, July 18th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Exton, Pennsylvania at the Hilton Gardens Inn. To get those tickets for the Juneteenth special, again, you cannot go to the website because what you will see is the early bird special. The Juneteenth special is not up there because it is for a short amount of time. It is for a lower amount of money, and you have to email educatorsrise@gmail.com to get those tickets. The deadline for the Juneteenth special is Saturday, June 20th. It will be at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you guys so much for coming. And I want you guys to remember this: leadership begins with communication. And when we invest in people, we create opportunities for everyone to rise. Until next time, keep learning, keep leading, keep rising. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.